One sound clip before we get into that, and this is one I had ready for yesterday and didn't get to. It comes from Andrew Weissman, Robert Mueller's lead prosecutor in the Russia probe. Andrew was the chief of the fraud section in the Department of Justice and is currently a professor at the law school at New York University. This is what he said before the indictment came down concerning fake electors.
One of them is this independent journalist, George Chidi. Here's what he told NBC News he saw. Now, this is important because this is someone who was in today before this grand jury.
Almost immediately, somebody shouted at me, "Hey, he's got a camera going." And I'm hustled out of the room. I think I was there maybe 20 seconds, but I said, what kind of meeting are you having? Like, somebody said, "We're having a meeting." And I said, "What kind of meeting are you having?" And they said, "It's an education meeting."
So, Andrew Weissman, what does it say to you that this is one of the perhaps final batch of witnesses that this grand jury would hear from?
Well, I think we're going to end up seeing at least part of the case being just like what we saw in the Michigan fake electors suit. If you are just engaging in a lawful process with a slate of alternative electors, if your litigation wins, there's no reason for this cloak and dagger and, according to this witness, lying to him about what the purpose of the meeting is. You would say, we're here because if our lawsuit wins, we're going to be the slate of electors that will be voting for Donald Trump, period, the end. There's no reason to have this be behind, a mask and a screen. So that kind of evidence of sort of hiding what you're doing is really damning. So I would strongly suspect that kind of witness is there for those charges, and that we'll see, just like what we saw in Michigan, those fake electors, or at least some of them, being charged.
And as per usual, Andrew was right. Now, after the indictment was announced and released Monday night, MSNBC's Stephanie Ruhle, one of my favorites, sort of addressed this fake elector issue. She was asked what stood out to her in this latest indictment.
I keep going to point 7 that you referenced earlier, where the last line written, "The stolen data was then distributed to other members of the enterprise, including members in other states." Other states sticks out to me because, remember, even if Donald Trump got his alleged wish, Georgia wouldn't have changed the outcome of the election, right? The state has only 16 electoral votes. He lost by 70. So the follow-on question is going to be, what other states? He would have needed several other swing states. And this lays out, as you pointed before, like there are others mirroring this. And when you read that line, other states, it begs the question.
And Stephanie makes a great point, namely that Georgia alone wouldn't have flipped the election to Trump. He needed more states, and there were more states who were involved in Trump's criminal enterprise. 6 other states, to be specific. And after John and I had our conversation yesterday, I said, I'd like to find out what's going on in those other states. Now, we know the first one. That's Georgia. It's getting all the attention. Then there's Michigan, whose fake electors, all 16 of them, have already been criminally charged just last month. I read last night they expect that to be a lengthy battle. Then we have Arizona, and it was just announced last month that they are investigating their fake electors. Reason for the delay? The new Democratic Attorney General, Chris Mays, was just elected in November of last year, 2022. Her predecessor, Mark Brnovich, a Republican and election denier, would not investigate Arizona's fake electors, and instead had his office spend more than 10,000 hours looking into QOP claims of voting irregularities and illegal voting, and failing in every regard. And get this, when the summary prepared by the then Attorney General's Special Investigations Section showed that they had found zero evidence that backed up the QOP's fraudulent election claims, then Attorney General Republican Mark Brnovich did not make that information public. It was reported just last month that new Democratic Attorney General Chris May's investigation into these fake electors is now in full swing. Here is Arizona's new Attorney General, Chris Mays.
You know, we absolutely have to be vigilant going forward into 2024. This really is about protecting American democracy into the future. These candidates are not going to stop. They're not going to stop trying to undermine and create doubt in the minds of voters about our elections, which are safe and absolutely very well run. So we have to remain vigilant. One of the things that I'm going to do as Attorney General is we are going to protect our elections officials against threats of violence, death threats, which they received, as you know, Ali, during this last election cycle. We are going to make sure that we protect the right of Arizonans to access the ballot box. And we are also going to make sure that we protect vote by mail, which the Republicans wanted to eliminate, but 90% of Arizonans use. And you know what, Ali? The other thing that we have to do is we have to make sure that it is clear to everyone that it's unacceptable to try to steal an election, to try to undermine and overthrow an election. And that's what happened in 2020. And I've said that as Attorney General, I will investigate the fake elector scheme. So we just have to make sure that what happened in 2020 never happens again. We also have to reach out to Republicans. We have to come together and we have to work on the issues that actually matter to Arizonans. And I think when we start doing that, when we start showing that Republicans and Democrats can work together on critical issues like water, combating the fentanyl crisis, making sure that we prosecute elder abuse and consumer fraud, that's when I think we can come back together as a country.
And you know, while I absolutely loved most of what Chris Mays just said, I could not disagree with her last statement more. We have to reach out to Republicans. Why? They have proved time and time again that they are neither interested in nor are they capable of governing. Look at what they've done since taking back the House in the midterms. One fraudulent investigation after another into Hunter friggin' Biden. You know, because that's the best remedy for high gas prices, inflation, and the border issue they claim to care so much about. They don't. They only care about any issue to the extent they can use it as a battering ram against the Biden administration. So reach out to Republicans. Maybe it's time we stop touting that old line and just said no. Anyway, that brings us to Pennsylvania and New Mexico. Although those fake electors wrote a disclaimer into their document that they would be seated if the election was legitimately disputed. I also read that New Mexico referred their investigations of the fake electors up the ladder to federal prosecutors. But I'm guessing no action will be taken with the fake electors in those two states because of that caveat they gave themselves. And I mean, credit where credit is due. They were part of the Orange Cankers criminal enterprise, but they were smart enough to protect themselves. Unlike the other 5 states who fake electors stated flat out that they were the duly elected and qualified electors when they weren't. That brings us to Wisconsin, and it was reported just last Thursday, August 10th, less than a week ago, that a Wisconsin judge allowed a civil lawsuit filed against that state's fake electors to proceed. And get this, that suit was brought by 2 of Wisconsin's legitimate electors and 1 voter back in May of last year. Why 2 electors and a voter brought that suit? Because Wisconsin's Democratic Attorney General Josh Kaul has signaled that he's relying on federal investigators to look into what happened in Wisconsin. Now, he also says he's not ruling out a state probe. Well, don't rush into anything here, Josh. It's only been 2.5 years now since the crime. And 7th and finally, that brings us to Nevada, which presently has 0 fake elector investigations taking place.